Some of you were absent much too frequently. I don't know what to do about that, but I just can't ignore it. Okay. Let's start now. These are just the highlights of some of the sugyas that we learned, which I really would like you to remember, so that as the Torah, you have a treasure of basic halachas. As you all know, the sugyas that we learned are on the first Mishnah, about Perek Shnayim Malzim B'Talis, two people holding on to talis, each one claiming it's all his, either because he found it first, or because the seller agreed to give it to him and not the other one. And the Mishnah paskins, in the absence of any additional proof other than the chazaka they're both holding on to the fringes, that they divide the talis with an oath, cholkin b'shvur. One of the things that the Gemara is suggesting is that Sumchas, it doesn't seem, could agree with our Mishnah. Where does Sumchas come up? Sumchas comes up in the classical case of a common, where an ox gores a cow, and then we find a dead calf next to the cow. The question is obvious. Was it the goring by the ox of the cow that killed the newborn calf? Or was the newborn calf would have been dead anyway as a result of a miscarriage, stillbirth, because it was stillborn before the goring actually took place? And Sumcha says to divide without an oath, the owner of the ox has to pay the owner of the cow half the value of the dead calf. So the Gemara says, well, maybe Sumchas is only saying it when you have a case of Shema v'Shema, where each one says maybe, no one is sure, then you divide without an oath. How can they swear if it's Shema v'Shema, each one says maybe, possibly? So what do you do, says the Gemara, according to Rabbi Bar Afuno, who says that Sumchas would say you divide without an oath, even when it's bori or bori, when each one claims to be certain. So the Gemara then answers, very interesting. Sumchas would say you divide without an oath only when there is drora de mamona. What does that mean? Drora de mamona. There are two basic pshatim that differ from each other like day from night. According to Rashi, when does Sumcha say you divide without an oath when there's a contention? When if I were to do paskin a wrong psak din, there would be a real loss of real money to one of the people. This wouldn't be the case in our Mishnah. Why? In our Mishnah is speaking about what? Finding an article. It's not a real loss of real money, so I wouldn't have a freebie if I lose what I found first. What about Mekach HaMenkar? The guy who gets it, okay, so his money is being lost, the other guy will get his money back, or whatever. So there's no real loss of real money. Okay, so therefore, however, in the case of the calf, if the calf was really killed by the ox, then the owner of the cow has a real loss. He would have had a living calf, or vice versa. If the calf would have been stillborn anyway, it happened before the ox gored the cow, then by making the owner of the ox pay, you're causing him to lose real money for something that his ox didn't do. You follow? That's Rashi. according to Tosfos, very interesting, V'orda Mamona means something else. When does Sumcha say that you divide without an oath? When the controversy has got nothing to do what Mr. A says and Mr. B says. Yesh sopek belita noseha. Anyone who sees what happened would automatically have a doubt who is responsible and what really happened. It's got nothing to do with what anyone says. If you see an ox goring a cow, and then you see later on that there's a dead calf there, before anyone opens his mouth, you'd wonder, hey, was the calf dead because of the goring? Or would it have been dead anyway? It's got nothing to do with what anyone says. So when there is a real suffix, belitano saying, so that the situation creates a doubt, and then you say, cholken below shvuah. However, in our case, it's not the case. It's only because the two opened their mouth. Anyway, the Gemara in the end says Sumcha could agree with our Mishnah anyway, because it's a takonas chachomim. Why did the rabbis institute the oath that each one should say, I own not less than half and divided with an oath? That people shouldn't be tempted to say, it's a mitzvah, money, get back the money from the sale anyway. And each one says, I'll try and get a piece of the action. And this way, by instituting a shvuah, the Rabbanon, you are discouraging that kind of unethical behavior. The Gemara also wants to know that maybe Ben Nanas couldn't agree with our Mishnah. What's the story with Ben Nanas? Well, we're going to discuss it because we learned it later too. The famous case of Chenvoni al Pinkoso, the shopkeeper with his records, etc. There is a balabayas, call it an employer, who has a poel, an employee. He owes him money, and he says, look, I haven't got the money right now. I'll call my friend the shopkeeper, Chenvoni. I'll tell him to pay you for the day's or the week's wages. And the poel agrees. Following Monday, the Chenvoni wants his money back from the balabayas. And the poel comes and says, I never got paid. How could that be? How could that be? The Chenvoni says, I gave the poel the money. And the poel says, I never got it. Now listen very, very carefully. So Ben Nanas says, the balabayas has to pay each one, the Chenvoni, the money he claims, the poel, the money he claims, without any oath. So maybe you wouldn't agree with our Mishnah either. Gemara says, nonsense. Do you know why Ben Nanas says they have to be paid without any oath? Because if they both swear, the Chenvoni and the poel, one of them is definitely what? Taking a false oath. Because if the Chenvoni did pay him, the poel is lying under oath. If the Chenvoni didn't pay him, then the poel is lying under oath. In our Mishnah, when each one swears, I own not less than half, it could be true. Maybe they found it together. So Ben Nanas could agree with our Mishnah. You follow? The other thing we discussed this already is later on Daf Gimel of Aleph, but we'd also learn the Tosfos. Why should the balabayas be responsible to pay both? He obviously owes either one or the other. What's his problem? The answer is because he's guilty. Why is he guilty? Because he did not even give a hint to the Chenvoni. Make sure that when you pay him, my poel, the employee, the week's wages or the day's wages, that you get a receipt. He indicated nothing of the sort. Therefore, the balabayas cannot tell the Chenvoni, I made you shaliach, the tikuni shedaticha, I sent you for my benefit, v'lo liyivusi, and not that I should be stuck with a double bill. Had he said anything about getting a receipt, you follow, then indeed the Chenvoni would be guilty. You follow? But since he mentioned nothing, absolute trust, so the Chenvoni felt he doesn't want a receipt, he doesn't care. So then the balabayas was guilty. So therefore he has to pay each one. Okay? However, each one has to swear. The way we paskin, we're against Ben Nanas. All right, so we finished Ben Nanas as well. Okay. Now the question is, but this I also explained already, why don't we say over there, Yehei Munach Asher Yovo Liyohu? Let the Balabayas put down the $100, whatever he owes, to one or the other, until we find out. No, but since he was guilty and didn't give a hint to anyone that he once received, kept. That's it. Okay. Obviously, they would have been responsible. He should have said something, and then what would have said? The head one, he said, give me a receipt that you got it. You follow? Etc. Okay. Next thing. Then we get to the major topic that concerned us all the time, which is motive of mikzas. That's a pasuk in Mishpatim. Very interesting. That pasuk, Asher Yoma Ki Hu Zeh, when he admits partially and the other part not. Nikra Balabayis Elohimi, he's got to take an oath on the rest. That's found in the parsha of the Shomrim. According to the majority of opinion, this does not apply to Pikono. It really applies to the parsha later in Mishpatim, in Kesef Talves Ami, the parsha of borrowing and lending money. And there we speak of motive and mikzas. Only Rami Bachama feels it really applies to Shomrim as well, and you need to be a motive and mikzas before you swear. But majority says it applies to Halvor. It's called Eru Parshios. Sometimes HaKadosh Baruch Hu wrote Halacha in one place, but refers it to another place. Okay. Now, motive and mikzas, very interesting. What's the basic reason, logically, why kofer hakol, if you deny everything? You're putter not only from paying, you're putter even from taking an oath. The answer is, because when I receive money as a loan from a fellow Jew, he's doing me a tremendous chesed. He's lending me money without interest, even though he doesn't have the use of his own money. How would I have the chutzpah to say I didn't get anything? So I'm probably telling the truth. So in our Torah, I'm being putter from swearing. Later on, the rabbis invented it when they saw that some people had the guts to deny everything, because in their mind they said, I'm not really going to steal. The moment I get some money, I intend to pay. So then they instituted a shvuah de rabbono, which is called shvuas peses for kofer hakol. But midioraisa, motiv and mikzas is potter from the shvuah. Okay, that's that. Now the question is, listen very, very carefully. If I admit 50 out of 100, I have to swear on the other 50. Okay. What happens? Okay. If I'm a kofer hakol, I deny everything. But Adam say, I owe 50. Do I still then have to swear the other 50? Rabbi says yes. Does he say that the pasuk teaches us that? No. The pasuk teaches us about Doas Atzma. So how does he know? It's a Kal V'chomer. And the way we learned in many different passages in the Gemara on the next Ovad, basically, Rabbi holds like Rabbi Meir, that whatever I can do, or an Eirechad can do, basically almost everything, Adam can surely do. And the way Rabbi Meir puts it, if Adam are so powerful that they can cause misa, they can give the death penalty to someone, they surely can do everything else. So if Adoas Pip can be Mechayev V'Shvu and the rest, then certainly Adoas Adam could also be Mechayev V'Shvu and the rest. That's Rabbi's logic. Who disagrees with him? Violently. Avu the Rabbi Abtorike. We finished that piece yesterday, as a matter of fact. The father of Rabbi Abtorike. He says, no. Also, it is clear. Asher Yom, when he admits partially to his death, not when Adam do it. That's not called motiv mikzas. There is no shvuah al ashor midioraisa. That's one machlokas.
What was that?
I'm going to skip for a moment to the very thing that we learned yesterday to get it in the same context. The Gemara tells us, in Daf Hey Amud Aleph, the last piece we learned, that both place their